Before we dive in today, I just want to do a couple of quick shout outs. First of all, to Bryony DeVere, who's located up on the sunny coast of Australia here. She sent a review in, a 5-star iTunes review saying, "Great work, Matt. I listen regularly and learn lots to implement in our business. Thanks." Bryony, you are so welcome. And actually, Bryony, you have secured yourself a spot in the upcoming naked marketing segment that Will and I will be conducting. So look forward to us reaching out to you in regard to that. That's where we basically have a look at your business and strip it back and see how we can potentially help with some of your marketing direction. And also, I have got a review here from, now you're going to have to excuse me here because this just looks like a whole bunch of letters put together, but JHAOBKBSODB. I don't know, Jacob maybe, out of the USA. Anyway, Jason again left us a 5-star iTunes review saying, Matt does a great job of helping contractors level up their business with the quality content and guests he consistently puts out. Listen now. Yes, I would have to agree with listen right now. Anyway, folks, if you do leave a review, I will read it out. So head across to iTunes, head across to Stitcher, or head across to SoundCloud, or even YouTube. You can leave a review there, and then it will get read out in one of the upcoming episodes. So enjoy the show. This podcast is proudly brought to you by the SiteShed's Naked Marketing segment. It's a new segment, and Will and I basically get you on the show. It's a live call, and we look at what's working in the business. We look at what's not working in your business, and then we help steer you guys in the direction of what will work better. So it's basically like having some one-on-one coaching with Will, who is the resident marketing guru, and myself for a half an hour period. The only way you can get in on that segment is by heading across to iTunes and leaving us a 5-star review. So if you do want to be on the show, we're happy to have you, but you've just got to head across there and leave us a review, and then we'll get in contact with you. So go leave a review, and we look forward to speaking to you on the show. If we look at some of the most successful products and services of the last, 10, 20 years or so, well, you know what, even throughout history, the majority of them are prime examples of evolution as opposed to creation. It doesn't always appear that way on the surface, but if you dig a little bit deeper, it's more often than not the reality. I mean, when Graham Alexander Bell, patented the telephone all the way back in 1876, there's no way he could ever have possibly imagined that we would be sitting here today, 74% of us in fact, sitting here consuming this content on our phones right now. And when Karl Benz created what we know today as the modern car way back in 1886, he could never have possibly foreseen that he was the foundationing, linchpin in the construction of a vehicle that could do 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. In today's podcast, we're talking about a story of innovation, but something that's a little bit closer to home and maybe not as glamorous. After all, money is where glamour isn't, or so they say. Today we're talking about the innovation of the toilet. And so in this podcast, I'm joined with Greg from Saniflo, and we're talking about the journey that they've taken along the release of their new product, which is the Sani Compact unit. And it's quite an interesting story, and I had to go through a lot of hoops to get to the final destination. So any of you guys that are out there wanting to develop a product or looking at maybe setting a product out into the market, this will be a very, very interesting story for you guys to follow and could potentially save you a lot of time and money. So anyway, enjoy the show, and if you do enjoy it, leave us some comments. Hello listeners, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the SiteShed podcast. And you're joining us today for episode 120 on the SiteShed. So it's come a long way, and today we are actually talking about an innovation more than anything. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'd be familiar with the series that we did on innovation with Nils Vesk from Business Blueprint back in episodes 80 right through to episode 80, 89 and 90. However, today we're talking about a different type of innovation, and an innovation that we could all relate to, I'm sure. And I'm joined on the phone by Mr. Greg Waters from Saniflo. Greg, welcome.
How you going, Matt? Thank you.
Very, very well. And Greg, I'm on one of your mailing lists, I think, because I received an email a little while back which was talking about a specific product of yours called Sani Compact, and it certainly it certainly stood out to me because it pretty much innovates a product that I suppose the world would be very, very familiar with, and one that probably hasn't changed all that much over the years. The humble toilet.
Yeah, that's right. It has revolutionised the toilet application, toilet installations.
Yeah, look, it's really cool. And I suppose the reason I wanted to get you on the show today, well, I just want to talk a little bit about Saniflo's journey throughout that innovative process, because obviously there's a lot of stages there that in the making of innovating a product and going from A to B. And I really want to talk a lot about the stuff in between there and how you got to that, how you overcame some of those obstacles, and how you came up with all these design processes and who was involved, and where you got your market research from and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit about, I suppose, the journey. But before we dive in, can you just give the listeners a little bit of a rundown as to primarily who Saniflo is, and then, if you don't mind, maybe just a little, a bit of a spill on, I suppose, the product that I'm specifically talking about.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So Saniflo, we are a global company. Head office is in France, in Paris. Been manufacturing in this sector since 1958. Actually, the inventors of this sort of pumping solution, the macerator behind the toilet macerator, was invented in 1958 to overcome a problem in an old warehouse where there was multiple units to be installed and they couldn't get drainage. So the pump actually was born for that reason.
And so, just for the listeners out there that may not be familiar, can you give us a bit of a rundown as to what a macerator is, and I suppose in this instance, where it's used?
Okay, so a macerator, it basically processes and macerates toilet waste. So, solids, yeah, that's right, without going into too much nitty-gritty detail. Gories, yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, so basically majority of the units, they sit directly behind the toilet. It's all fully automated. So as soon as you flush the toilet, it activates the pump. That incorporates blades as well, not unlike your household blender at home, if you don't mind me saying that. That's how it processes the waste. And it's then pumped out through small diameter pipes. So
Awesome.
The pump line's pretty small, starts out at 20 mil on most of the units, and then increases in size on the horizontal run.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I suppose, we're going to get into this a little bit in a little while. However, I suppose the obvious advantages of a product like this is going to be where there's some sort of restrictions in the way of waste outlets, or underground systems that need to be pumped or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, look, primarily it's a pumping solution where you can't achieve gravity. So you know yourself, you're a plumber. Gravity drainage is the norm. It's the go-to. It's the benchmark.
Yeah.
This product allows you to be able to install fixtures below drainage or sewer level.
Yeah.
But it also does allow you to install complete bathroom, kitchen fixtures a lot cheaper than conventional plumbing allows. So you know yourself, conventional plumbing, if you want to put a bathroom in the middle of say a raft slab building, you've got to cut through the concrete. It becomes costly, disruptive, and compromises the integrity of the slab. So this allows us to add fixtures where normally it would be cost inhibitive. We just can't do it.
So I'm interested. Obviously you went around back in 1958 when they were, when they were developing this product. But in your experience, what are some of the requirements, or some of what's led this product to evolve to what it is today, in the sense of has it, like, demand, supply and demand, and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, look, we're primarily a European-based company. So funny thing is, in Europe, it's a large DIY market, whereas here, obviously, plumbing products need to be installed by a licensed plumber. Whereas in Europe, it's DIYs. So Mr. and Mrs. Jones can walk into the local hardware, they can pick up a pump, and they can install it themselves.
Yeah, it's concerning.
It is concerning, but the funny thing is, it doesn't seem to cause that much of an issue.
Yeah.
There's your DIY market and there's your professional market.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, funny enough, there doesn't seem to be that many problems really.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, look, it really has evolved a lot over the years. We've got a big R&D department. So, firstly, if you want to start from the basics, is that where you want to start, from initial design? Or?
Well, I'm more interested, I suppose, in like just from a like how the product has evolved to what it is today, and
Mm.
like has that come from customers' feedback? I suppose one of the I should clarify as well. I've got some colleagues and some listeners to this podcast that are in the space of developing products, to suit a market need. So I know a lot of them are going to be interested in listening to, I suppose, some of the journeys and I suppose some of the stages that you would typically go through to innovate a product like this and to take it through from where it was to where it is. So like with the Sani compact unit, obviously it's evolved a lot over the years. Has that come from a supply and demand scenario, or is that more a case of Saniflo saying, "Hey, you know what? We're just going to create this product because we want to be the first"?
No, we're big in the marine market as well. So the technology of the semi-compact actually come from the marine electric toilet
Gotcha.
product range. So the technology in it is essentially marine technology, but then they realise that obviously there's a need for this in the residential domestic market as well, not just the marine market. And it's done well. It was actually first launched in 2005, and it's just gone ahead from there. I mean, we here in Australia, we can only actually get one of the models, which is the semi-compact C43 Eco, but in France, we at the factory, there's actually another 5 models on top of that. But the reason we can't get those here is because of our backflow prevention specifications, which actually inhibits a lot of those other products.
Yeah, cool. Actually, that's one of the questions that I did have for you in relation to I suppose some of the hurdles that we have to jump through here in Australia, perhaps around the world. I'm not even sure, but we will get to that.
Mm.
Can you tell us a little bit about the product research, or how did the idea get validated? I mean, do you do a lot of targeting towards potential customers, or is there like market research, or how do how did that all happen?
Well, I suppose you look at the different sectors. It's with this particular product, there wasn't anything on the market prior to this in Australia. So for us, it's been an easy transition because you bring a product into the marketplace that ticks all the boxes and it's new, it's innovative. As far as getting the product out there goes, I mean, that boils purely down to nuts and bolts marketing, I suppose.
Right. Okay.
Trying to work out how to push the product because it's a plumbing product. It's a PC item. It's how do you get that out there if if you haven't got millions of dollars to spend on commercial TV advertising?
I feel like though, I mean, very often with new products that are they haven't been seen before, there is often a level of resistance in the marketplace due largely to the fact that it's kind of unknown and people they're not familiar with it. So is that an obstacle that Saniflo's had to overcome, or do you have to overcome that with? I mean, I'm guessing even with plumbers, people that are installing this thing, you're going to have to go through that whole. There's going to have to be some sort of education process there.
Yeah, look, I mean, for plumbers, we try to do as much training as we can, but we find it harder and harder these days.
Right.
Master Plumbers Association in New South Wales, especially in Sydney, isn't that proactive with that sort of thing anymore. They're more focused on training apprentices.
Right.
So it gets harder to get to the plumbers for that sort of training. So we actually, surprisingly, we're very proactive. We talk to plumbers on a daily basis, and guys more and more they're calling when they're installing a product for the first time. They're calling us for advice so that they can get it right.
Yep.
Which is a good thing. As far as the end users go, we do the home show, Sydney HIA, Melbourne Home Show. We get a lot of end users on the stands there, and a lot of people come on and they have, they may have no idea of the concept at all, but you've got to try and simplify the explanation and show them how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And so obviously, when you're selling this product and there's people installing it, you were saying there is support there. So is that a matter of them, when they come across a problem or something that they can't figure out themselves, it's a phone call, or is that typically how it works? You've got specialists on hand that can help them through those processes?
That's right. I mean, we're available here, on the phone. The guys, look, it's one of those things. If you're going to install a product that you've never used for the first time, would you read the instructions?
Don't ask me that question. My wife's in the other room. She'll probably come in and
look. That's the one of the things that we find is you get this 50% of tradies don't like to read instructions, or they think they know better, and that's where the wheels start to fall off the wagon. At that point, we're going to get phone calls. But a lot of guys, they like to do a bit of research. I'm surprised that we tend to find that more and more these days. Is
Yeah.
the tradies are doing more research on what they're doing before they even do the installation. They
Yeah.
want to get it right. They don't want any comeback. They don't want any ramifications for poor installation.
So how do you tackle, I suppose, at the design stage, potential limitations and things that are going to potential hiccups, I suppose, that you're inevitably going to come across?
Look, as far as design of the products go, I mean, we have engineers
Yeah.
and working at the R&D level. So a lot of this stuff is computer modeling. So before it even goes to prototyping, you're going to computer model the product and go through different scenarios. So
Yeah.
it's amazing what can be done these days with computer modeling.
Yeah. Okay. So I suppose you touched on this a little bit earlier, some of the limitations and, well, I suppose largely considerations as well that, you would have to respectfully, I suppose, approach when you're going through this process. And as you said, there are a number of products that aren't available in our market here due to backflow prevention, which, of course, for those that aren't familiar with that term, a lot of the listeners overseas, it's basically cross contamination prevention. So it's stopping, contaminated water entering back into the water supply. How are those safety considerations? I mean, how are they addressed, I suppose, at the design level? I'm guessing there's obviously differences in what we can get away with here in Australia and what they can get away with in Europe. Is that right? I mean, do they not have backflow prevention over there, or what's the story?
Look, it's not Australia. Us in the UK, we have some of the most strictest technical standards as far as this sort of stuff goes. UK has what's called the RAS
Yeah.
certification, and that's very similar to our watermark approvals. And there's technical standards and guidelines to go by, and part of those technical standards are a whole heap of testing processes. So every new product has to jump a whole heap of hoops in test.
Right.
So one of our backflow prevention tests on sanitary products here in Australia is one of them is vacuum testing. So there's a vacuum put on the water inlet point that comes into the flush rim of the pan, and it's vacuum tested to up to minus 80 kPa. And what that does is that works out whether, if the toilet is overflowing, whether water can be drawn back into the system, into the service, and then back into the water main.
Right.
So a lot of other countries don't have that. Europe don't really have that necessarily. What they do there is they like to think that, okay, we'll just position our water inlet valve, our cistern valve, higher up on the wall above the toilet level.
Yeah.
And supposedly that will stop siphonage, but it's not right.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the advantage of a traditional toilet cistern is that there's a bit of an air gap there, isn't it? So
Let's call it
I'm guessing.
supplementary air gap. So this is what the Sani
Yeah.
Compact works on as well. It's a very
Oh,
similar
okay.
process to a standard toilet suite. So the distance for a standard toilet suite, between the top of the rim of the pan and the inlet of the valve, the water inlet, is actually called a supplementary air gap. So the Sani Compact is tested on a similar is passed on a similar technical standard.
Okay, gotcha. What about things like, say, floor waste requirements and, all those kind of things? How do you address those scenarios in Australia?
So it all depends. I mean, if you're talking residential, usually zone 1 residential, ground floor, it not necessarily do you need a floor waste. You can get around that if it's a wet room. Let's say you've got a shower, toilet and basin. If it's an enclosed shower with a door and you've got an overflow hand basin, then you can actually negate a floor waste in a lot of circumstances.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, first floor, definitely you need a floor waste. And, a lot of commercial applications, you need a floor waste. But there are ways around. Like if you've got overflow hand basins, you can, in certain situations, negate a floor waste.
And what about, like, from a certification process? Like, how does that work? I mean, I suppose with a new and innovative product, is there a certain body or, like, how do you approach the making sure that it's been installed correctly and all that kind of stuff. And I'm guessing the builder half the time wouldn't know.
No, well, look, I mean, if you're talking about certifications for the actual, all right, let's take the Sand Compact for it. I mean, obviously that's got to be watermark approved. It was a lengthy process to get that through. We had to rewrite technical standards,
Right.
and testing, a whole new scope for testing to actually get it through, because there was nothing else on the market before and there was no standard for it.
So when you were saying you've got to rewrite basically the testing process, who's governing that? Like, who's saying, sorry, Greg, you need to rewrite this testing process?
I say you've got the ABCB, which they handle. They've got the watermark scheme, and you've also got Standards Australia. But connected to all that, you've got the technical authorities from every state. So every local water authority in every state has a sub, and that's a person that would be on the board. And then anytime a new product comes in, a plumbing product that hasn't been introduced before that may be outside the square, then a summary has to be written up for that product, and that has to be sent out. It's sent to the ABCB, and from there it's actually distributed for all the technical bodies to look at and give their feedback as to whether they think there might be an issue with it.
So it's certainly not doesn't sound like it's an overnight process.
It's not an overnight process. It took us a good probably 2 years to get the Sani Compact through and get it to a point where we can launch it on the market.
And is that largely, do you think, as well, due to the fact that there is, like, it could potentially be quite it's a risky kind of product in the sense that you do have, backflow possibilities potentially, and you do have, there's electricity involved and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm guessing if you were trying to, create a new bath plug or something, then it
wouldn't be so bad. No, because it's a high level risk product. So you're aware of, with backflow prevention, there's 3 different levels of risk. You've got high, medium, and low. Anything to do with connection of toilet suites or anything to do with bodily fluids and feces, is with possible back contamination of the water supply is high risk. So these products are in high risk. So anything that's high risk to medium risk is, you've got a lot of criteria to meet as far as testing and the standards go.
So tell me, with one of these units, if it's installed on a property, does the property have to be protected as well through like an RPZ or something like that?
No, it doesn't, because of the supplementary air gap. Again, it's just like a standard toilet suite. It wouldn't be practical for us to have products on the market where you had to install an additional RPZ, because it's got to be tested every year. The initial installation cost would be prohibitive, and then the ongoing testing costs each year as well. It just wouldn't be worthwhile.
Interesting. Okay, so I suppose I do have a few questions around the prototype development and testing and stuff like that. I mean, is that, I guess Saniflo's been around quite a long time, so they're pretty well resourced. But I imagine there's a lot of budget that has to be allocated into even the process you just spoke about. Taking it through those stages of testing and getting everything ticked off. Is it an expensive process?
It's a very expensive process. We've got a product. This is probably a good example, but we launched a product last year before, called the Sani Cubic 2XL. It's a big pump. It's 120 litre tank, twin 2,000 watt motors, Vortex technology. Cut a long story short, the development of that product was probably about €1 million.
Whew.
And it's massive, like moulds alone for some of our larger products. It's nothing to have €500,000 for a mould. It's the tooling and the machinery and the actual design and develop. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, and is that, I suppose that would that be as well a reason why you wouldn't see many Australian grown companies coming out with products like this? Is just there's not a big enough market locally? It's
a bit of a niche. They're niche products, really. We're the leaders in this sector in Australia, but obviously that's because we offer a large range of interesting concept products. The only other, you've got the likes of Grundfos. They manufacture a small range of what similar technology to what we manufacture, but it's not their core business. they're into large pumps, recycling systems, pressure systems, all that sort of stuff. So we're kind of lucky in that way that we're so far developed in this sector. And when I say this sector, I mean, like it's smaller pumping solutions, it's unique macerators and grey water pumps. There's been more money put into that and that sort of development, because at the end of the day, that is our core business.
Yeah.
Not with Grundfos, they're larger, submersible pumps, pressure systems, fire systems, all that sort of stuff. That's their core business.
So, I mean, effectively, I'm imagining, when you are trying to get the product, like a new product, through certification. So if it's a product that hasn't been around before, it's newly introduced, then you're effectively writing the compliance standards for these. Well, when I say you, I mean, the ABCB or, Standards Australia or whoever it is. Are they pretty much creating these standards now based off your product?
No, well, there's set technical standards for different products, and this is for plumbing products. Right. So with the normal pump range that we have, behind the pan macerators, grey water pumps for kitchen sinks, they come under a certain technical standard, which has been around for a long time. When we introduced the Sani Compact, it didn't meet any of that criteria because it was totally different. You're right. Trying to mix a toilet suite with a macerator, and all of a sudden there's nothing there. Like you can't, it won't fit the technical standard criteria. So that's why we had to write our own, to a certain degree, rewrite a technical standard so that it could be tested under that standard and pass and tick all the boxes.
But so when you're trying to get these things certified by the ABCB or Standards Australia, and you're effectively creating your own technical standard, is that kind of not is that not like a bit of a conflict of interest?
No, it's not our own standard. Okay, it's something that it still has to. So all standards, technical standards, go through the ABCB. So every product has a certain standard. When I say we rewrote the technical standard, I don't know, it'd be hard for me to put it, but basically we combined the toilet suite technical summary with the existing macerator pump technical summary, and you then have to put that forth to the ABC, okay. Which then in turn go through it, and they get their technical subs to look at it and see if that fits all the criteria. So it's not actually, we didn't write our own. It's probably a bit misleading the way I said it, but we didn't actually physically write our own standard and then they go, oh yeah, that's it, that's fine. It still had to comply with all the other technical standards. Yes.
I'm with you. Okay. So from an installation perspective, how do you address, is it at the design stage, or, is it, I'm just wondering how you would address things like, restrictions in the space of, okay, well, you've got to consider other services. There may be other fixtures there. Some surroundings would apply, some wouldn't. Are they all things you've also got to jump through with, like drawing comparisons to other standards within Standards Australia, and are there considerations in that regard that you've got to overcome as well?
I mean, you got to look at the electrical standards. So
right,
all our products have to have Australian certified leads. That all has to comply, those leads. So all our products that come through, the kind of, you can look at it as an electrical appliance. So the factory has to be provided with the Australian certified leads. We have to have certification and approval for those. That has to be updated every 3 or 4 years. So it's ongoing. So from an electrical perspective, that's relatively simple. It's not that hard. It's only when you come into, certain plumbing standards. And look, the Sani Compact was the only one that has really given us grief as far as that goes. That's been the hardest. Everything else is easy.
So in terms of things like, okay, you can't put the unit there because it's too close to a power point, or, there's a range hood, or
Yeah, well, I mean, that sort of thing. Well, that sort of thing just boils back to the AS3000, the electrical standard. Okay. So, like a power point of GPO has got to be a certain height. and
Okay.
distance away from the semi-compacts, if that's what you want to talk about, because it's a toilet bowl, kind of a bit like a basin opening. So the power points would then be positioned as per the A3000 there.
Okay.
As far as the other products go, again, any electrical installation, because you've got to remember that majority of our products are plug-in.
Right.
Under the commercial range, that then, some of the commercial range is hardwired.
Mm-hmm.
So that, again, that has to comply with the A3000.
I suppose, like, moving along a little bit now, when we talk about maintenance, and obviously that's something that I know a lot of the listeners out there would be thinking, "My God, how do you maintain this?" Is that something that's on the plumber, or is that something that you guys take care of, or how would that work?
So as far as maintenance goes, grey water pumps, a pump under a sink would need to be serviced more than, say, a macerator. So grey water pumps inherently, especially in a commercial application, need to be serviced, probably at least once every 12 months. And that's a physical clean out of the unit, a visual, make sure that all smaller components are functioning okay.
Yep.
As far as a macerator goes, which is a toilet waste pump, there's no real maintenance as such. They're pretty simple function. They don't tend to, build up with any solids or anything like that, which doesn't impair them. I suppose the only thing you've got to watch with macerators is foreign objects down the toilet.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Mainly, I'm guessing it mainly sanitary items.
Sanitary items, flushable wipes is a big thing these days as well,
Right. Okay.
which they not flushable at all.
Yeah. True.
They're a killer.
Interesting. And so what about in terms of who can service it? Is it do you need like some sort of certification, or like how do you jump through those hoops when it's like, okay, well, now we have to figure out who's going to actually get out there and fix these products when they break down? Is it?
Yeah, look, we have a full service network. So we've got service agents in every major city, in the regional centres. We've
Are
got
they
an
contractors, more or less?
They are contractors, so they're trained contractors. So we train the contractors that we choose as being our service agents.
Yep.
They get extensive training in the products and servicing. And then from there, if somebody rings up and they need a service on their product, well, we'll steer them towards our service agent in their area. In saying that, if you're a plumber and you buy one of our grey water pumps, you're installing it in a commercial application and you want to service it yourself, then that's not a problem either. As far as basic servicing goes, we can provide help and a bit of workshopping over the phone and that sort of thing to actually get them on board so that they're okay and confident to clean and service their own pumps. So
I wonder if that's always been the case, or from the onset, did they always plan on having technicians that contract, so that they can train up and they contract to them to basically go and repair these units, or at one point would Saniflo have had their own service technicians that were basically had to go around and service everything on their own?
no, look, even in Europe, we sell about, I think it's about 140,000 units a year in Europe. Even over there, our main service department is based at the factory, but they're all the guys are contractors. So we don't have employees as far as the service network goes. Because it's a mechanical product, it's a plumbing product, it's just as easy to train plumbers to
Right.
be service technicians.
Yeah.
And we're probably not, I mean, even though we're a global company, we're probably here in Australia, we're not actually big enough. We're not like Ream, who can afford to have some of their own in-house service technicians. We're kind of not at that sort of level that we can do that.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, look, getting towards the end, I suppose, of what I wanted to talk about, a couple of things I did want to ask you. Talk to me a little bit about the eco side of things, because I know eco is kind of a bit of a buzzword at the moment, and eco this, eco that, recycle this, recycle that. What's the eco classification, and then how do you either design a product to become eco, or how do you modify an existing product to sort of fit that profile?
I suppose for us, the term eco, or for the semi-compact, it comes from the water usage. So 3 litre full flush, 1.8 litre half flush, and 2.3 litre average.
So what's that in comparison to a regular water closet?
Regular toilet suite, 4.5 litres full flush, 3 litres half flush. Probably average.
So it's pretty much half.
Yeah, average water consumption would be, for a standard toilet suite's about 3.2 litres or something like that.
Right.
So we're a fair bit less than that. We're now we have a 6-star Wells rating, which
Which
up until
is
recently. So the Wells standard was brought out in the mid '90s, early '90s, when we had the water restrictions on, when Sydney, the
yep,
Warragamba Dam was down to like 10%, or
yep.
so Wells was actually introduced by the government as a standard for all plumbing products, tapware, toilet suites had to be restricted
I remember
as.
this. Was this at this stage when you were going that they were going around and putting restrictors in your shower heads?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Wells was born out of, the water restrictions when we were in drought for what, 10 years or whatever it was. So now it's the norm.
In regard to that, so do you have to comply when you're developing a product? Does it have to comply to a certain star rating in order to get certification?
Well, it does. I mean, toilet suites have to be 4.5 litre full flush these days. There are lower flush suites on the market, so they have to be minimum 4.5 litres. Sorry,
Okay.
maximum 4.5 litres.
So at the design process, it's really important to understand what the requirements are, even from that level. Like if you go do all this work and develop this prototype and this product, and it comes in and it's only got a 3-star rating, you can't go.
Well, yeah, it's a waste of time. You couldn't call it eco.
Right.
You call it
Okay.
eco-friendly. And it's also the power consumption. They're very low power consumption, our products.
Right.
On average, probably less than 2 amps current draw. And they don't cycle for very long. So you're only talking, current draw over probably 8 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. And there must be a very fine line between, I suppose, getting a certification on a product at a certain star rating versus how the product functions and how good it is. Like I remember when they went around and put all these, these water restrictors in shower heads and things like that. I'm not even convinced that it was actually a water saving result, because you ended up spending twice as long in the shower trying to get wet. So I
Yeah,
reckon
that's
it
right.
kind of balanced out.
I'm sure a lot of people pull those restrictors out.
Yes. There are a lot pulled out in my friends, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose for us, I mean, there's two, when it comes to this sort of plumbing product, there's two criteria you've got to meet. You've got to meet the watermark standards, and then you've got to meet the Wells rating.
Mhm.
So as far as development of this product goes, to be honest, I mean, it was developed in Europe,
Yeah.
so the Wells rating isn't in place over there. But in saying that, they're very aware of the need to save water
Yeah.
and save energy. So everything that's designed by Saniflo, by SFA, which is our company, is that eco-friendly perspective is kept in mind with everything that's designed.
Yeah. Okay. So then, was that with that in mind? I mean, this product was designed in Europe,
Mm.
just as an example. It came out here, and did you have to go through did you have to modify the product to get a 6-star Wells rating certification, or did it actually have that?
No, we didn't to start with, because we couldn't. We initially couldn't get it on the Wells database because it was too low. So there was nothing there.
Oh,
It wouldn't meet. It wouldn't even register on the Wells database because obviously water usage for a toilet suite was too low.
right.
Wells had to modify their database to accommodate this technology. So which is probably not a bad thing, because again, there's a lot of innovative products coming on the market now. There's vacuum toilet systems, which are
Yeah.
costly, but they're now in a 6-star Wells rating. Not that you'd want to install one of those in your home, but
Yeah.
there's a couple of other products now coming through since the database has been modified. But I kind of like to think that we may have led the
Pioneered.
pioneered because when as soon as the database was modified, our product went through. I'm pretty sure we were the only ones there with a 6-star rating. But then not long after, there's another 5 or 6 on the database now as well.
Oh, nice. Good little bit of marketing collateral there for a short time, anyway. The
Yeah, that's
only
right.
6-star rating.
Yeah. We just got to be creative with our wording.
Awesome. Well, look, I think that pretty much wraps up. I suppose there's one thing, just in closing, I'd like to ask you, whether were there any standout obstacles that you had to overcome throughout the process? And if so, what were they and why?
Oh, look, I've got to say that the biggest hurdle to get over was the backflow perspective of the actual product as far as the semi-compact goes.
Okay.
Because of our standards, our standards are so high. It's a bit crazy sometimes.
And being that was a standard you have to overcome with a product that had already been designed in a different market, what were the hurdles that had to be jumped through in order to get that certification here?
Like I said before, the rewriting of the ATS, the technical summary, so that it could be tested and tick the boxes as far as that goes. That was the biggest hurdle for us. That took a long time.
And in terms of, I mean, you can write all this stuff down and you can draw these diagrams up and whatever and send it off. But I'm guessing at some point you're going to have to get a prototype in front of a panel and say this is how it works, and then just give a complete breakdown of all of the questions that relate to the backflow prevention or whatever it might be.
Yeah, look, we were lucky with this product. We didn't actually have to have a prototype in front of the technical people from the ABCB, because you've got testing from the CSIRO, so every product has to be tested in a certified lab, and there's only a couple in Australia who are certified for this sort of testing. All those tests were conducted by a certified lab. So a lot of them was done in CSIRO lab. And then there was some more done with our certifier. He actually he's got a certified lab. He did a fair bit of testing there as well.
Okay, fantastic. So I suppose in closing, any advice to people out there that are, looking at, or what would your one bit of advice be to somebody out there that's looking to innovate a product, or, looking to, I suppose, take a product from where it is and, move it in a slightly different direction? Like what would you recommend them?
I'd say research the market to start with, but then research the standards. Make sure that you're well and truly on board, that you know what standards you have to meet, what technical summaries you have to meet for that particular product. Because if you go in blind, it's just going to take a long time. It's going to be painful. So the more research you can put in it at ground level before you even start, the easier it's going to be.
And when you say research your market, are you talking about researching your potential buyers?
Yeah. So research the potential for that particular product or the technology that you're looking at to introduce. Is there a market for it? Is it going to be viable? I mean, it's pointless having a great product which you think is a great product, but if there's no real need for it in the marketplace, who's going to buy it?
So I'm guessing as well, there's a lot of contributing factors that would come into that alone. I mean, things like geography. Obviously, we talked about installation restrictions in your case, but I mean, there could be a lot of contributing factors. People available to install the product. Like there must be.
I mean, look, I suppose major cities and the larger growth areas. I mean, that's where the majority of products are sold, and that's where that's where the majority of the plumbers and the trades are.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, mate, I think we pretty much might wrap that up here. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, that's about it, I think, Matt.
Cool. And where can, if people want any more information about, I suppose, Saniflo or maybe this product specifically, what's the best place for them to get hold of that? Just through the website?
Look, through the website is probably the best place. Yeah. I mean, you can give us a call, but yeah, I mean, the best starting point is the website. If you've got any inquiries there, we've got a live chat line there. You can live chat, give us a call. There's plenty of information on the website.
So I'll post a link to that page too, because I've got that right in front of me. So I'll post some links to that in the show notes. And I suppose just the last thing I'll ask you is what does the future hold?
Well, more innovation, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, newer products. We're always evolving and we're growing all the time. So the future's going to be pretty bright.
Well, keep up the good work. On behalf of, I suppose, the SiteShed community, thank you for sharing that story with us. It was fantastic, and giving us those tips and a little bit about your journey.
Not a problem at all.
Look forward to the next email.
No worries, Matt. Thanks very much for having us anyway.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.